Welcome to Think Green, a special edition of Designing Spaces that's all about you, your space, your home, and your surroundings. I'm Ted Brunson. Home and surroundings, well, the environment. You know, today all of us are becoming increasingly aware of how we affect the environment. The air we breathe, the water so necessary for life, the energy required to power our civilizations are all being impacted by humanity's increasing demands on what Mother Nature can give us. Instead, we should look at the environment as part of our economy, health, and community, all working together towards what we like to call a green lifestyle. Now, on today's show, we have a great lineup of topics to help you create a more eco-friendly home, a place where you and your family can live a more efficient and healthy lifestyle. So let's get started and think green. With rising energy costs, many homeowners obviously are looking for ways to keep their heating bills down as they see their utility bills rise each passing season. So the question is, how do you control your utility costs and live green? Well, here's Tiffany Ogle in Elko, Minnesota.
Elko, Minnesota in summer. Green fields, placid lakes, gorgeous warm weather. But everyone knows the ice, snow, and freezing temperatures of winter are just around the corner, along with higher energy bills. In fact, heating and cooling systems make up more than half of your home's energy, whether you have electric, oil, or gas. And we all know those utility bills are on the rise. So today on Designing Spaces Think Green, we're looking for solutions with John Barba from Taco, a manufacturer of home heating equipment for 90 years. Hi, John.
Hi, Tiffany.
Thanks for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, let's start by talking about some simple things people can do to reduce their monthly fuel bills.
Well, sure. Why don't we take a look around the house and maybe we can give you some ideas.
Great. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, some simple things that can be done to save energy include keeping the thermostat at around 68 degrees as opposed to 70 or 72. Make sure your weather stripping and weather sealing is in good shape, too. Check out the areas around the doors and windows, around electrical outlets, bathroom and kitchen vents. Also, make sure you use sufficient insulation up in the attic, too. You lose a lot of heat up in the attic. And finally, make sure the heating outlets themselves aren't blocked by furniture or bookcases or anything.
Those are some great tips to winterize the house. Now let's talk about home heating systems. How often should this equipment be serviced?
Well, that's a great question, Tiffany. Now, whether a homeowner has a furnace with a forced hot air system or a boiler with a hydronic or forced hot water system like we have here, that equipment needs to be serviced every year. A qualified service technician needs to come in and check the flame and check the boiler itself to make sure everything's in good working order. The boiler needs to be cleaned annually as well. Furnaces need to be cleaned annually as well to make sure there's no dirt in there that can make it less efficient. In addition, every year, a qualified service technician needs to do a combustion analysis. It means he has to take out his equipment and check the flame, check the exhaust, make sure that burner is burning as efficiently as possible so the homeowner is getting the most bang for their buck with their new efficient equipment.
Well, at what point should we consider replacing our boiler or furnace with a newer model versus improving the one that we have?
Well, that's another good question. A lot of times, especially with the energy situation the way it is today, energy costs the way they are today, folks would be looking to replace a 5 or 6 year old furnace or boiler with a newer model. Now, a 5-year-old cast iron boiler that's 82, 83, 84% efficient still has a lot of life left. Well taken care of, that boiler can last another 20, 25 years and give you trouble-free service. So from a green standpoint, it makes no sense at all to replace a boiler that's still that young. One of the things you can do to enhance its overall performance would be to add a boiler reset control. It tells the boiler how hot to fire or how much heat to make at any given point in time. When it's the coldest day of the year out, it'll make the most heat. When it's, say, 30 degrees outside, it won't make nearly as much. Over the course of a heating season, a properly applied, properly installed outdoor reset control can cut fuel bills anywhere from 10 to 20%. Another addition that you can add to a heating system that can enhance overall system performance is a variable speed delta T circulator. A variable speed delta T circulator will make sure that you get the lowest possible water temperature going back to the boiler at any given point in time. When we do that, we can make sure that the boiler itself burns at its peak efficiency all of the time. We won't let it short cycle with warmer water than necessary going back. And if you do need to replace your boiler or furnace, one thing that's real important to make sure is that the installing contractor do a heat loss analysis. He has to measure, using some math calculations, how many BTUs the house will lose on the coldest day of the year. From that point, he can accurately size the boiler or furnace to match the heating load. If it's too small, well, that's a problem because it's not going to heat the house on the coldest day of the year. If it's too big, that's a whole other problem because it will do what we call short cycle. It's just too big for the application. And when a boiler or furnace short cycles, it never really burns efficiently.
So these boiler upgrades, not to mention buying a new one, can get expensive, right?
Well, it depends on your definition of expensive. There are still plenty of state and federal tax incentives available for upgrading heating systems, as well as a lot of local utility rebates and loan programs that can get the overall cost down to something the average homeowner can afford.
Let's go from the boiler to the heat delivery system. When should we replace or upgrade that?
Well, that's a more extensive renovation than simply replacing the heating plant. In the case of the home that we're in, the homeowners had a forced hot air system with a furnace, but they also suffer from allergies, and a forced hot air system tends to deliver heat by blowing air throughout the house. Now, when you blow air throughout the house, dust and dirt and pollen and other allergens go along with it, and that was aggravating their lifestyle, made it an uncomfortable home. They chose to go with a forced hot water system with radiant floor heating, meaning our boiler makes hot water, and these pumps will circulate the water through tubing in the floor to create a nice, warm, radiant floor heating system. So just imagine the whole house being a nice, warm surface. So it's very comfortable from a living standpoint, but also it's not blowing dust or dirt or allergens or other stuff throughout the air, so their allergies were much better. So from that standpoint, it made the house much more comfortable for them, and the system's more efficient to boot.
Well, how about their hot water supply then?
Well, the nice thing about a hydronic or forced hot water system is that you can use the boiler to make your domestic hot water. What we have here is an indirect hot water tank. This is a super insulated tank with a heat exchanger inside.
Okay.
What happens is when the hot water is stored in here, and hot water from the boiler goes through the heat exchanger inside to create your domestic hot water. A tank like this with a setup will make more hot water than this family will ever use.
So year-round, it seems that people say it can take a while for the hot water to get to the faucet, and that seems pretty wasteful to me.
Oh, sure. That's a big problem. With homes today, we're finding that kitchens or bathrooms are much further away from the source of hot water than they were, say, 30 or 40 years ago. So the wait for domestic hot water to get to the tap can be considerable, 4 or 5 minutes. If you have to wait 4 or 5 minutes for water to get hot at the tap, that could be 10, 12 gallons of water down the drain while you're waiting, and that's very, very wasteful.
Yeah, literally down the drain.
Absolutely. So we're installing a hot water recirculation system here. It's a little pump that will circulate water through the domestic hot water pipe so that when you turn on a faucet at any given point in time, you'll have water almost instantaneously, hot water almost instantaneously at your tap. That can cut down the amount of water you waste going down the drain, and it can also save money on your fuel bill, anywhere from $200 to $300 a year in many cases.
Well, now that we know what can be done to improve our home's heating system and hot water supply, our next task is to find the best person qualified to do the install and modifications. Got any tips for us?
A few, yeah. Maybe the best way to find a good qualified heating contractor would be to ask friends and neighbors who they used and who they've had good success with. And then once you've identified a couple of candidates, check out their qualifications. You want to find a contractor who's undergone significant training, who has been certified. A good qualified service technician's worth his weight in gold.
We'd like to thank Taco for providing these efficient, eco-friendly examples of home heating systems. And thanks to you, John, for giving us some great tips that'll help us save a lot of money on our heating bills this winter.
That was my pleasure, Tiffany. Glad to do it.
And where can viewers go to find more information about what we talked about today?
Well, they can log on to our website at taco-hvac.com for all kinds of great information.
That's great. And if you want to watch this show again, you can go to designingspaces.tv and click on the Think Green section. In Elko, Minnesota, I'm Tiffany Ogle for Designing Spaces. Think Green.
We all have the power and the ability to make a difference. We have a choice, and it's a choice like never before. So together, let's make the right decision and move towards a healthier world. For Designing Spaces, Think Green, I'm Ted Brunson.
You can visit these websites to learn more about the participants on this edition of Designing Spaces.